open standards, trustworthy AI, and the common good. Now it's really a privilege for me. I'm Francesco Lapenta. I'm the director of the Institute of Future and Innovation Studies at John Cabot University. It's really a privilege for me to be able to work once again with Giorgio Bartolomucci, who's the director, I'm sure you know, of the Diplomacy Festival. I don't need to tell you how important this Festival of Diplomacy has become in Italy. It's certainly one of the references for me, an incredibly influential initiative that has been going on for over 10 years and is collecting thousands of people and making a real difference. So I'm extremely thankful to the Diplomacy Festival for hosting us today, and specifically also to the Center for American Studies, that is this brilliant location. I want to tell you a little bit about this session that is co-hosted with the Boston Global Forum. The Boston Global Forum is an organization that has been founded by Governor Michael Dukakis, is hosted by Harvard University in Boston, and is the co-host of this event today. The Boston Global Forum and the Institute have been collaborating for a while on a program on artificial intelligence. It's been a few years now, and we, as a project, we are really trying to make a difference for basically creating conversation and diplomatic efforts to try to influence the way in which AI is developed and regulated worldwide. So it couldn't be more appropriate for us to be hosted by the Diplomacy Festival. I also want to thank Fiamma Goretti, who's going to be our moderator today. And she's working for another really important company. It's probably you know it already. It's called change.org. So this is a number of organizations that are really trying to work together to shape the way in which artificial intelligence is going to develop. Now, Fiamma is going to introduce our distinguished guests. But before getting to the presentation of our guests, I would like to give the floor briefly to the CEO of the Boston Global Forum, co-host of this event with the Diplomacy Festival, who's online from Boston right now. Tuan Nguyen is the CEO and founder of the Boston Global Forum with Michael Dukakis. Please, Tuan.
Thank you so much, Francesco. I'm really would love to join in person with you in Rome today, but we cannot. So I'm a very pleasure to join, and we are great. Thank you for the Institute of Future and Innovation Studies at John Cabot University in Rome, and special thank to Francesco Lapenta, my dear friend, and great contribution to Boston Global Forum and AI Society initiative. And we are great thank for Diplomacy Festival, and thank for the Center for American Study. Yes, as you know, Boston Global Forum, we have AI Society initiative, and we are very early in 2017. So we are really appreciate and recognize standards for new society or model and for better tour with AI. And today is a very special seminar because Rome is a great city and Italy with Renaissance traditional. And I hope and I believe, I trust Italy will have play very important role, pivotal role in new world with AI, with digital. And thank again, and we are really appreciate and look forward very much this seminar with great ideas and discussion and suggestion for new, for open standard for AI and AI society. Very pleasure and honor to recognize our discussion today for future. And we look forward to work with you very much for future. Thank you so much for Festival of Diplomacy. And thank for Francisco Lapenta, my dear friend. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tuan. Thank you very much, Francesco, for having me moderating this event today. I'm particularly grateful to the Diplomacy Festival for providing us with this space. I think it's ever more important to be having this conversation in the current world where technology can really become a place and a tool to bridge gaps, but it can also, if it's not used in the best way, create more inequality, differences, and discrimination. So the idea today is to, with the speakers involved in this debate, try and understand how and with which technical standards we can try and find a solution to the issues that AI poses, and especially generative AI, as we were saying before the beginning of this talk. So the speakers today that will be involved in the debate around global governance for AI are Konstantinos Karakalios. He's the Director of Standards and former Managing Director of the IEEE. IEEE is the Standards Association that is leading on consensus building, nurturing, developing, and advancing global technologies. Domenico Squillace, he's the president of UNINFO since September 2021. We have Gianluca Misuraka, executive director of AI for Gov. We have Mihalis Kritikos, policy analyst at the European Commission, former analyst at the European Parliament. Anna Gressel, counsel at Paul, Wise, Rifkin, Wharton and Garrison LLP. And we have Clelia Piperno. She is the CEO of the Babylonian Talmud Translation Project, and she's our appointed respondent today. The first intervention will be by Konstantinos Karakalios. He's joining us remotely, so he should be already online. I think, can we hear you? Probably yes.
I'm here.
Thank you, Konstantinos. Thank you very much for being here. You're globally recognized leader in standards development and intellectual property. I would like to give you the word and ask you, to explain to us and talk to us about the need for the main actors who are involved in the AI development to include a humanitarian perspective into the design of AI systems. Which are the social accounts that we should, the social standards that we should take into account when developing new technologies, and what does this mean today for the actors involved?
Thank you. I'm delighted for this invitation and to be able to contribute. And I'm sorry I cannot be in this wonderful city of Rome that I really adore. And if I heard correctly, I'm still the managing director until the end of the year. But you are right, there has been appointed a successor, which is very interesting for me. And but I'm still the managing director. And I would like to start, perhaps you can upload my presentation. I have a PowerPoint.
Yes.
And, I don't see it. Is it there? I mean, I can just speak. I don't need a PowerPoint, but there are some interesting...
Yes, we have it. We have it. We just need to...
Perhaps I can start already, that we don't lose time as they try to... Yes,
yeah.
Go to the next slide.
Yes, here we are.
Yes, go to the next slide. Then already. There is a little overview there of the topics I would like to address. I give you 10 seconds to read through, and then we can go to the next slide. Thank you. So, the theme of today's discussion. It is about how to deal with so-called artificial intelligence. This is a term that I really dislike profoundly because it is born out of a marketing gag. It does, and it alludes things that do not exist. There is no ontology like artificial intelligence. There are systems that do things and about which I'm going to talk. And we started 7 years ago, perhaps 8 years ago already, to address the contextual aspects of these technological systems. And these contextual aspects, they are not the purely technical. Of course, they must be reliable. A system must be able to recognize a cat from a dog and so on, or a cancer from non-cancer and so on. This is the reliability and the benchmarking. And this is an ongoing effort by the technical communities. What we started looking at is what comes with these technologies, things that we technology people and scientists don't want to look at. It is about the outcome of what we're doing, not the technical output. And, whenever I have been participating in panels, technocrats or techno-solutionists, when they were asked whether technology is neutral and science and so on, the answer was, of course. Somebody has to mute himself. Yes. Can I continue? Yes.
Yes.
I'm not sure. So, okay, I just in parallel. So whenever there was this question whether technology is neutral and so on, there are people who say, we technology people, scientists, when you take ahead, this is not a problem. So we're always good with good intention. We believe that given the complexity and the embedment of these technological systems, and also how they evolve, how they're created and so on, we cannot be so sure anymore. We should be more modest, more humble, and better in addressing, let's say, contextual aspects at the design of the system, not later when they cut it out of the sack, and then we try to correct the errors we did, creating even bigger errors. We simply cannot continue like this anymore. To put it in a sentence, the time of innocence is over. If there ever were an innocence, we have to assume our share of responsibility. And what I'm presenting you here is IEEE's effort to try to assume our share of responsibility in our domain of expertise and of action, starting with these technological systems, which you summarily call AI. Next slide, please. I don't see now in which slide you are. I hope you are, and I don't hear anything or see anything than myself. I'm now in slide 3. Are you hearing me?
Yes, we are.
And we can see.
Okay.
We can see the slide, yes. We're on the risks of AI slide.
Correct. And of course, this is a list of possible risks that people are talking about. And of course, there may be also others which I have not captured here, but I think they are significant for us, technical communities, to start thinking seriously about how we design systems, and also to seek for collaborations with other disciplines, including with the political actors. And political actor is parliamentarians, governments, agencies, and so on, also NGOs, and so on, our political actors, civil society, to understand and try to do a better job by design, and to listen to what they say, because also usually when we technical people talk about dialogue with policymakers, we mean we should advise them. And this is very arrogant. I think, yes, there are things we can advise, but we should be much more listening to the political realities and the societal realities than just advising. So, next slide, please. And of course, there's a specific aspects of anxiety, which is about so powerful systems, because we're talking about extremely powerful systems, which have an exponential scale of evolution, what they mean for proper governance, for civil rights, also for human rights, but I prefer to talk about civil rights, understand this better. And what can happen if we trust them too much and we take as humans that our human judgment out of the equation. I think we should never come in a position to trust these systems more than we trust ourselves. We should not forget the Stanislav Petrov moment, when this guy had the guts to plug them off and say, I do not trust you, we made you, we know better, and save humanity from a nuclear Armageddon. Next slide, please.
Yeah.
So, I have spoken already about the myth of technological neutrality. And this is, if there is something that I really fight against in life, it is this. I don't believe in this. I believe we are not neutral. We have our values. Some of us have very good values, some of us not, some of us have really mixed and so on, but we are not neutral. And what is necessary is if you press the button one more time, then we have the rest of the text. We need really to be more responsible, to cooperate, to understand our values, and to make them explicit. There is nothing wrong about values, also about adversarial values. There is no such thing like universal values. I think almost all values are very contextual, but we should put them on the table and not be dogmatic about them. And there is one value perhaps we can all agree: the need to save and preserve human dignity, also under extreme circumstances. Next slide, please. So,
Yes.
we need to consciously participate and intervene in this process of innovation and deployment of technologies and making the implicit explicit. This is extremely important. This is a democratic value, because power likes to hide the sources of power or to dissimulate them. Sometimes they say it comes from God, I'm a king, and so on. No, it doesn't come from God, and so on. So it is very important to make the implicit explicit and to design explicitly. And for us, it is important, at least the ones who think like me, to try to have socially positive and politically emancipating outcomes, not manipulating. And so we should not limit ourselves in optimizing technical systems only and technical details. They lead to very partial results, and sometimes they can take us also to very wrong places. So for us to be a positive part of society, we must admit that we shape the societal conditions, and then we should be really actively trying to be accountable for this shaping, and not say, oh, no, we're just technical and other people really are using the wonderful things we are doing for other purposes. Next slide, please. Now, what I have been telling you about was not standards related, it was technology related. And you should understand that I'm not only the head of a very influential standardization organization, but I'm also one of the leaders of IEEE in general, because I'm a member of the Management Council. So I see the whole thing. And this is a quite unique perspective, because the organization I'm leading from the staff perspective is not standing alone, but we are part of something much bigger. were part of these techno-scientific communities that are global and also local at the same time, hundreds of thousands of people, and we're interacting with millions of engineers and scientists every year through our, let's say, conferences. We organize 5 conferences every day. I mean, this is something. So, and here are some examples what standards are really doing. It is not just interoperability. It is not just you take your phone and you can use the same phone in North America and Europe, which was not possible 15 years ago. Now things have improved. They are really very important pieces of the puzzle of the global governance. It is a soft governance together with regulation and so on. They make things really work. And you don't even realize how it happens. This is the beauty and the strength, because they're invisible. You realize their existence if it doesn't work. And if we go to the next slide. Now, this has been the case. It was interoperability, safety, reliability, and all these wonderful things that make the world around you function without you thinking too much about it. What we did, and we started this really 8 years ago, we said, this is not enough. This is not sufficient. From technical, we have to go to socio-technical, because what we're creating, it is not technical systems anymore. The internet is not a technical system. It is it is a society-changing system. We cannot anymore say, oh, we're just technical people. We're creating networks. No. It is so clear that we do much more than this. At least then we should admit it and try to assess what we are doing, to elevate the significance of non-technical imperatives, like, for instance, that the system must be transparent, it must be accountable, it must be fair, it must respect our privacy. And from this, you would understand that the internet fulfills none of them, none of this. So we created a system that fails in every one of these categories. So what is possible for this? And this was not an accident. The question is, can we turn it around? And how? And with this, we're navigating unfamiliar terrain because we're not used to it. We're not used to assume this responsibility. It is also inconvenient. It is much better to feel innocent and great. Here is to admit failures and to try to listen to others, people who don't have our patience, and to work with them. And we have done this. This is then also interdisciplinary collaboration to address grand challenges, like the governance of the internet, for instance. You cannot have just interoperability engineers. They don't get it. You need other people who understand that privacy is important for the protocols and other things. So we expanded our charter. And this was not easy. When I started it, people were telling me, what are you doing there, Konstantinos? You are creating problems. Things work. Do you mean they don't work? Do you mean we create a problem as technologists? I mean, you're going to slow down innovation. Whom are you working for? And so on. Today, nobody tells me this anymore. Today, discussions as you are holding it now, they are several every day around the world. When I started it, there was nothing, really nothing. There were some academics, really lonely voices in the desert. So something is changing. And this is positive. And I'm very thrilled about it. And I would be happy to consider that from our perspective, we have contributed something for this. It is a cultural paradigm change that this is occurring. And I think this is very important. And this goes far beyond AI and its marketing and hype and so on. And this is good for humanity, I think. Next slide, please. So the standards, the new category of standards which now we embarked on, which are these socio-technical standards. And even NIST now talks about socio-technical standards. They are not, it is both a guide for behavior when we design systems. For instance, if there are children that engage on your platform must be age appropriate and must deliver age appropriate services. You should not be able or allowed to treat children as adults. And I'm not talking about the content. I'm talking about the algorithmic behavior that makes children addictive. You may have heard now that 30 states or more in the US are suing the internet platforms for making children addictive. So this is a huge crime against humanity. It is about billions of children made addictive. It is an opioid crisis of an unbelievable scale. And this is done by technical people. I mean, it is time to wake up and assume a responsibility for better design. And so if we go to the next slide, please. Now it is about our process. Who makes these standards and how? I mean, there are several organizations doing standards, and they were one of them, and they were one of the organizations that are doing standards with a global engagement model. Not only that our standards are used globally, who is not using Wi-Fi, who is not using Ethernet, who is not using streaming and so on. These are really the flagship standards of humanity right now. They happen in our territory. But important is that everybody can participate in our system. It is totally open. You must not be an IEEE member to participate. You must not pay anything. It is free of charge. You don't need any approval from anyone. So, I mean, this is quite strange for so influential systems that we have a totally open participation mode. This is our religion. There are some problems that come with this. For instance, that it may not be perfectly balanced, the working group. You cannot have both, totally open and totally balanced. So we have always to navigate very carefully around the balance and so on. But openness, no, this is our really dogma. And we have a very rigorous system of how to review standards, to approve them, to approve new projects, and so on. And this is a machine that works since 130 years. We've been doing standards with IEEE. Well, the history of electricity, practically. Edison and Graham Bell and Tesla created the organization, and they started immediately with safety standards. Now, and also we have a business model, because we are totally independent financially from any government or industry and so on. And this has a price. We have to maintain ourselves. And we sell our standards. We sell access to our standards. But this is the price for our financial independence. But we have chosen categories of standards that we make available for free, because we think it is very important that everybody should have open access to this. Open standard is one thing, open participation, and open access, it is free of charge. These are two different categories. One is a business model, the other is a process model. So, and the standards that have to do with ethical aspects of technology, we make them all available for free. And I think this is quite a generous offer from our system. Next slide, please. As I told you, we have started 8 years ago with this. Now everybody talks about it. When we started, nobody talked about it. They were even laughing at me. The ones now who say, oh, we need cooperation and so on. When I went out and said, listen, there is something coming. We have to assume a responsibility. We cannot anymore ignore the ethical aspects. They were telling me, what are you telling us? We're engineers, we're not philosophers or ethicists. This was a bit tough. So, but we didn't give up. We continued, and then people were saying, even if you do the standards, who is going to use them? They're not mandatory. I said, let's do it, and then we will see. And now there is the AI Act. They are craving for standards. And we have done them. They are there. There is a report by the GRC in Sevilla about the standardization landscape, that the standards that are necessary to implement the AI Act. And this is public, so you can just download it. It's 44 pages. It's very clear that IEEE has really done the standards that are necessary to implement the Act. I would say by 90%, perhaps we are missing 10%, but we're working on this. So because we started years ago, and we created the desire for this, I believe. We co-created it, to be more humble. And we did not only do standards, we started doing certification systems. And the certification systems, if you remember one of the previous slides, is not just to design for better behaviors, but also to judge behaviors. This is the conformity assessment. Okay, you have a system. How does it behave? Is it transparent? Is there a good chain of accountability? Does it have inherent bias? And at the end, is it used to survey us? You know the case, I mean, the seminar takes place in Italy, and I remember that the Italian government, they were distrusting ChatGPT, and they put it, they stopped it for several days because they say, okay, you are just violating our privacy. And then they started again. Why? Because OpenAI told them, trust us. I mean, what is this? Do you believe the one who commits the infraction if they tell you, no, 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 trust us? I mean, so you stay there, you say, prove it. But we have the tools to prove it. If a government, for instance, wants to know whether these systems violate privacy, we have the tools, believe it. For any government, for any organization to check around privacy, bias, accountability, and so on. And sorry if I'm not very politically correct, but you know, it is true that I'm coming to the end of my tenure and I can speak the things the way I see them. Next slide, please. And I have alluded to this before. When we started this around 2015, 16, it was about not giving IEEE any competitive advantage. We wanted to change the paradigm within the techno-scientific communities, not the IEEE communities, everything, everybody. So we engage with others, try to make them understand that we need to do it. We technical people must assume our responsibility. And we created them together with other organization of Oceanis, which is the open community for ethics in AI and so on. We are very proactive, trying to convince others. And then we created series of standards, the 7000 series and so on, and also others that are about the governance of systems and so on. And if you go to the next slide, and I'm coming to the end here, and thank you for your patience. I understand that it is there are voices which say the standard developing organizations should cooperate and so on. I fully agree, because there is a lot to do. And we tried. This is why we established Oceanis together with IEC, with the British Standards Institute and many other organizations to cooperate to change the paradigm. Because many technical communities say, this is not our business, this stuff. We're just doing interoperability. And so we need to work together to change this negative attitude. And I think we won this war. Now nobody's challenging this anymore. And just some examples from our perspective. Go to the next slide, please. I'm coming to the end. We have never worked with Senelec before. Senelec are the European central organizations for standards beyond the telecommunications. For telecommunications is ETSI. But these are the two most important European standard developing organizations at regional level, not at national. So we started thinking, can we do something together? How can we combine the global intelligence of a system like IEEE with the regional intelligence of Sensenelec? And we took two examples. One was to develop something from scratch. It was a new standard. It is not a standard. It is called a Sensenelec workshop agreement, where stakeholders come together and produce specifications. And it is a kind of pre-standard. It can be then taken up by the member states. And this can become a European norm. And one topic that we took together was about digital sovereignty. And we started developing this from scratch. And this evolved very nicely. And it is not just regional sovereignty. It's also about the individual towards the state or a business. But not every company is dominated by a few companies based in only one place in the world. So we looked at all this and we developed a very nice specification. What I'm presenting you here is a very interesting thing that Sensenelec accepted, that we introduce a standard we had done, which is age-appropriate digital services framework. It is called. It is a Sensenelec workshop agreement. I'm in slide 13. And if you, I'm not sure you're on the right slide, go backwards, one slide backwards. It is not so important, yes. And we introduced this standard, which we had developed, which is a very nice standard, which helps regulations like the one developed by the United Kingdom and also applied in California and now spreading in other places in the world to defend the rights of minors online, that the minors are not treated as adults but as minors from the algorithmic perspective. That means it should be forbidden to gather personal data from children, should be forbidden to profile them, should be forbidden to keep them online by make them addictive. It is that. And with this, we should stop the opioid crisis against children. And opioid, it is really the algorithmic opioid. It is not chemical, it is electronic, but it is devastating. And Sensenelec accepted that we start based on this. Then a lot of experts from Europe participated. They contextualized our standard, introducing references to the European legal frameworks and so on. They made also some very nice improvements, and they made it better. They improved our standard. And when we do the next revision, we're going to integrate all these things. So this was a very nice example of cooperation. We start with something that somebody has done.
Konstantinos, I'm sorry, we only have 2 minutes left. I wanted to give you a heads up.
I finished. And so, because talking about collaboration, what is it? Here it is. And if you go to the next slide, this is go to the next. This is let's say, a blog from the Sensenelec webpage. It is not ours, it is Sensenelec, where they really speak very positively about this. And again, 10 years ago, we did not cooperate. They were not interested. Now we do it. And if you read the last sentence, the next step should be to further develop this important workshop agreement into a European standard. This will be the first ever European standard based on an IEEE work. And this is very concrete. And I have another example. If you go to the next standard, which is really my last, it is a cooperation with SAE, which is another, no, this is not the thank you, the one before, which is an organization setting. Go to the slide before, please. It is an SAE's organization setting standard for mobility. So you have the wrong, probably the wrong version. So there is another example. I just talk about this. SAE and IEEE were working together for the new standards of autonomous driving, which have very serious also ethical implications and contextual aspects about data gathering and so on. And we're going to join our forces to jointly develop standards. So, and this is another very nice example of two very important organizations coming together to jointly develop standards. So we're very open to collaboration, and we're doing this even with organizations with whom we had not experience up to now. And so you are right, Francesco, when you say it is very important to collaborate in this environment. And I finish here, and thank you for your patience.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Konstantinos Karakalios, for providing examples and about what your organization is doing. It's a very remarkable work, and it's a very responsible work. And I was very personally interested, to just make the mental connection that we have all already in history created standards across the globe around, for example, nuclear energy, and definitely AI will be and is already the next. So I'm also confident in this ability by different stakeholders and organizations as well as civil society to come together and find agreements and work together to find global standards, technical standards. And in relation to this, I wanted to give the word to Gianluca Misurata from AI for Gov. I wanted to ask you regarding, this aspect of tech diplomacy and what we can do across countries to find a consensus regarding what needs to be done. Right now, the geopolitical context is quite rough, I would say. So on a lot of things, we struggle to find agreements and, consensus among countries, even within international organizations. So how do you see, what do you think about where we're at in the global landscape with regards to AI regulation, and what do you think needs to be done? What can we do better, and what's our responsibility to do as well?
Well, how many hours we have to answer this question? So a very, very important question, especially today. And first of all, let me thank the organizer, Francesco, everybody for having me here today. And it's an honor to be again back in Rome. That is my city, by the way. But I was here already another occasion at the Festival della Diplomazia. It's an excellent initiative. So I'm very pleased to be here again in such a magnificent building. Actually, I was asked to prepare a few slides, so today during the flight from Seville, I assembled a few slides so to guide my presentation, but I promise to be quick and also hopefully entertaining a bit, so in order to make sure that we have also an interaction. So I can have my slides, and can I stand? So maybe, so this will be more a bit after lunch, so it's difficult. And anyway, I'm here mainly on my academic hat as a director of the AI for Government. That is a program led by Università Politecnica di Madrid and Politecnico di Milano. It's a co-funded initiative of the European Union, but I'm also leading a number of technology diplomacy actions of the European Commission Foreign Policy Instrument. One in particular I will mention is called intouchai.eu, so it's international outreach for human-centric artificial intelligence. But today, and it's very, very nice to be just after the presentation of Konstantinos, because he set the stage very well with the technical aspect, the discussion, but also the geopolitical issues currently under debate. And he concluded saying that we need you. So we need you to listen and to be engaged in this. And why? Because, you are basically, the one that will be affected by the decision that some bureaucrats, some policymakers, not necessarily very knowledgeable about AI, are taking right away in Brussels and Madrid and in other places in New York and Washington. So it's better that you really say watching them and us that are all working in this field, because the rules that will be let's say decided today will actually affect the future and your life. And actually they're already affecting your life. So I want to pass 3 messages briefly because we don't have time. One is exactly how we are shaping and you are shaping and will shape the future of digital governance. Because nowadays you are all, I guess, listening, you know, there is the Chinese, the American, European approach, but okay, what is for you? And then we talk about digital sovereignty and tech diplomacy. What are these words? What do they mean? And then the need of a global governance of artificial intelligence that includes also standard. And then I will just mention briefly, as I'm not an expert in standards, some of the work that my colleagues are doing on this topic. So first of all, and I will be just brief on this, but there is a series of publications that in fact at the Joint Research Center of the European Commission, where I've been working in Seville for more than a decade, we've been looking at the future consistently and see what would be the impact of, for instance, everybody's talking now about the AI Act, maybe you know also about the Digital Service Act, Digital Market Act, a plethora of regulation that are, of course, limiting, according to someone, the innovation landscape, or instead avoiding risks and wrongdoings that could be done by the bad guys or just by industry to make money. And then there is the issue of data. So how we govern our data, how we manage our data is just ticking the box of the GDPR that we solve the problem, or will a regulation solve all the issues because we avoid, for instance, you to use ChatGPT or any other innovation. I mean, the COVID pandemic, when we did this scenario analysis, showed that sometimes we prefer, policymakers, they don't know what will be the impact of something, and so we block everything. But maybe there are more smarter way to assess the situation and take decisions. Of course, the ideal world that we would like to live in is the one that, and I had the pleasure to meet Sir Tim Berners-Lee recently, is the one that was already imagined by the inventor of the World Wide Web, an open world where in fact open standards and open technologies can actually allow and enable an open society. But at the moment we are more in a apathic and closed innovation system with the Googles and the Apples that are basically, or the Microsoft that are basically having their own environments and they don't talk to each other. So we don't know the future, it's up to you to shape it, and clearly it will be digital, that's for sure. So 2 keywords that are becoming more and more important are digital sovereignty, la souveraineté digitale, as President Macron said at La Sorbonne at a certain point, and that's also created a bit of confusion because the translation in English is not exactly what he was meaning. It's basically making sure that when we access an app or we do something online, we are owner of our own data. And that's why we also need technology diplomacy, because we have at the same time the need to use this technology like artificial intelligence, but we have to make sure that we can govern them and so make sure that we live in a democratic, we keep living in a democratic and liberal society. At the same time, as Luciano Floridi, that you may know, said in a very nice paper on the fight for digital sovereignty, we are living a period that is more or less like many centuries ago, like there was the investiture controversy, and so it didn't matter if you were religious or not, but basically the decision taken at the time would have affected, and it actually affected the entire world. And that's what's happening now in these boring meetings in Geneva or in New York, when some technical guys are deciding standards that will affect our lives. And this is where we have to also be empowered to make sure that we can have our say. So also, And I invite you to read this book that is old, 2005, I mean old for you, but it was republished in 2020, exactly during the COVID, because it was showing exactly what policymakers do when there is a problem they don't know how to face, the law of fear of Carl Sunstein. So basically they try not to do anything, so hoping that things will go away. Now, this, do you know what is this? Any guess? Right. Or someone say the LLMs are the new printing press. Basically, it's what could change the world, according to some, or, and is actually already doing, but we don't know what are the impacts. Now, and what is this? Do you know? This is the famous TARC that was given as a present to Marie Therese, the Princess Maria Theresa, back in 1770. There was actually a chess robot, a chess machine, that in reality had someone inside that was playing for that. And this is what is happening also with AI today, because we, by the time we check our mobile, we are also training the large language models, and basically we are humans designing and making the rules of this technology. So just to go to the governance part, that is one of my main topic. And so, of course, policymakers have a difficult job, because they, on one side, they want to use this technology. They want everybody to use and take advantage of them, but also they have to make sure that we don't get, it wrong. There's no problems for citizens. So that's why there is a big debate on the governance of AI. It's not just about the AI Act. Everybody's talking about this small piece of legislation, but it's a full arsenal, a regulatory framework on digital governance that the EU has been established since 30 years now. And that's, of course, something that also refers to the use of this technology by, for instance, governments themselves, that often are not very knowledgeable about them, or by the private sector that, of course, also is exploiting this technology to reinforce our human capacities. And sometimes with this technology often do much better than we in certain activities. But there is also, in fact, the most powerful part of this technology is when basically we somehow surrender to them, and they can do a lot of things better than we do. But of course, we need to have some oversight. Otherwise, the risks are also exponential. So this is President von der Leyen. I hope you know her. She said the 13th of September this year in the State of the Union, I mean, she quoted someone, I mean, a big catastrophic quotation that AI could kill humanity, could destroy humanity. But in reality, there are many risks, and that's why the risk-based approach that the EU has proposed, and now as we speak, there are discussion in the trialogue between the European Parliament, the European Commission, and the Council, is addressing this issue from an exactly risk-based approach to avoid and to limit the risk that could come with using AI. But also, and this was well explained already before, this is not something we can decide in Rome, in Italy, in Europe alone. We have to have a global approach, and that's why we need to also from a European perspective, work and partner with international organizations and at the international level. And that's why, and here I quote also my colleague Gru Hasselbalch, that has been contributing to the work with the project I'm leading in Touch AI of the Trade Technology Council negotiation with the US, because despite as many years we are talking about human-centric AI, we do not have a definition yet. So one of the 65 terms that has been agreed between the US and the EU in the recent summits in Washington last year, in Luleå in Sweden this year, was about the human-centric AI, where basically, and this is very much in line with what Costantino said, we have to address this as a socio-technical system. So we have to address not just the technology, and that's why also the regulation is not regulating the technology per se, rather the use of this technology. And then having agency and oversight, and also, because we are European, we live for the time being still in a democratic society, we have to make sure that we speak loud about the democratic values and the principles of sustainability that we do enjoy in Europe. So, to conclude, two of the commissioners, I mean, Vice President Vestager and Commissioner Thierry Breton already said last year that we need to ensure the data protection that is made according to European value. And also, these technical standards that was presented before need to be, are some strategic importance for ensuring this digital sovereignty that we mentioned before. And Europe is trying to catch up somehow, but also to become a global standard setter. And that's why there was a proposal back last year to make a new approach to standardization. So maybe colleagues that are more expert than me will delve much deeper into this. But just for you to understand what is a standard, and an harmonized standard means that, at least in Europe, the CEN-CENELEC that was mentioned before, or the ETSI, the European Technical Standard Institute, basically they actually develop these standards, and then this becomes part of the European legislation. So basically then they are compulsory for all of us. And this is more or less what in different areas, not just on technology, on AI, it's aimed by the European Union. To conclude, with specific reference to the artificial intelligence and the AI Act, a few months ago, there was a request by the European Commission to the CEN-CENELEC to define 10 new areas of European standards and European standardizations that should be, let's say, aligned with the implementation of the AI Act. It won't happen tomorrow, even if they decide tonight to agree on the compromise text, I doubt. But basically, there will be 1.5 years at least to further develop this, in order that we have a specific focus on some risks, like, for instance, social credit systems, or surveillance, or biometrics, or other, like disinformation, that is one of the main issues under discussion at the moment. And this is what also is defined in the technical annexes of the AI Act, for example. To conclude, I mean, just invite you to travel from Rome to Madrid. Last year, more or less this time of the year, with Francesco, that I thank again, and other colleagues and friends at the John Cabot University in Rome, and with Inspiring Future, that is my organization, Reimagine Europa, and others, we had a workshop and a meeting with several thought leaders worldwide, and we defined we drafted the Rome Declaration on media ecology and technology diplomacy that I invite you to read and sign. And in a couple of, in 3 weeks actually, we are counting the hours, and there will be a big event in Madrid that I'm organizing with the European Commission and the Spanish presidency of the European Council on leading trustworthy AI globally. So you're all welcome to Madrid. Make sure you register soon, because there are a few seats left, and this will be a Casa de America in Madrid. And there will be discussion, and the AI Pact will be launched by the European Commission President Breton. That is a kind of code of conduct, a voluntary code of conduct for all industry to sign in and start, let's say, testing on the AI Act implications. I thank you, and I stop here, hoping.
Thank you very much, Gianluca Misurata. Unfortunately, I don't think I'll be able to make it in November, but I think it would be a great opportunity for everyone in this room. And we can also watch online? Okay, perfect. Good to know. So actually, your talk is the perfect introduction to the next speaker, Michalis Kritikos, policy analyst at the European Commission, whom I believe is online. Is he? No, not anymore. Okay.
I am online. I don't
you
know
are?
If you can hear me.
Okay, I didn't see you. Okay. Thank you so much for joining us online. And yes, I would love if you could, as an insider in the European institutions, give us an idea of what's going on at European level. The European Union, like it did for the GDPR, is definitely at the forefront in this challenge and is setting a standard globally. So we would love to hear from you what it will mean, and also around the ethics of AI. The discussion at the European Union level is very much centered on that. So can you provide us with more insights into what will happen after the AI Act?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. It was a pleasure to receive the invitation from Francesco, whom I met in Brussels for an AI ethics meeting. Can I upload the presentation that I have prepared? Is it possible that I can do so?
Okay. You can share it, if you want, you can share your screen and we should be able to see it. Yeah, perfect.
Okay, let me see if I can do it. Can you see it?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, great.
If you want to have it full screen, I think it would be easier. Yeah, perfect.
Thank you. You're right. Before I start, I have to kind of make a disclaimer. I'm not working for DG Connect, the service in the European Commission who is leading the file on artificial intelligence. I'm working for DG RTD. I'm working for the service of the European Commission that is is managing actually the biggest framework program on research in the world. And within that, within the research that we found, is artificial intelligence. All sorts of proposals coming from different disciplines on this domain, and there is an increasing interest both from the research side, but also from our side in funding this type of transformative technologies, as we call them. I'm more specifically working on the ethics side of RTD. So basically, our work is focused on reviewing proposals that are research proposals that arrive at our inbox for being funded. They have already been pre-selected on the basis of their scientific excellence and involve AI technologies. Not only any type of new and emerging technologies. So our work is to review these proposals, to set up expert panels, panels of experts that come from different disciplines, from social sciences to engineering, and from legal sciences to people that work in very specific domains of philosophy and ethics. So these people come together and screen or assess or review, have different types of kind of assessment, let's say, mechanisms. Basically, what they do is they go through the proposals and they try to identify elements that may raise ethical challenges. They produce a report, and the outcome of this opinion, this report, goes to the applicant, goes to either to the applicant or to the beneficiary if it's an ongoing project, because we also audit projects from an ethical point of view. And this kind of report becomes a contractual requirement. So the applicant or the beneficiary is expected to meet these requirements, to apply the ethical recommendations, the ethical requirements, as we call them, that have been provided, have been kind of adopted and framed by the panel. So basically, our team is working on what we call applied ethics. And we also work throughout the last few years on the so-called applied ethics of AI. So it's to me, it's we talk about AI ethics, we talk about hundreds of declarations, codes of conduct, standards, principles that are adopted throughout the world and by different types of institutions, from academic institutions to companies, from national governments to international organizations. There have been more than 230 or 40 initiatives of this kind thus far. Our work is to make sure that these principles are applied and are applied in the research and development domain. And before, okay, I'll kind of zoom in and then I zoom out to explain to you what the Commission has done in that sense. What we do is to review proposals when it comes to the AI technologies against the 7 requirements that the high-level expert group on AI that the European Commission set up a few years ago came forward with. They adopted a set of principles. This you can see that this is a public document, the ethics guidelines for trustworthy AI. This is basically a document that let's say, puts forward 7 core requirements and 4 ethical principles that developers and deployers of AI systems should meet, are expected to meet. So our job is to assess whether an AI proposal, a consortium or an individual fellow or individual researcher, basically designs his or her research in accordance to this requirement. For that, we have a procedure, as I told you. And basically, there is, as I said, our process comes just after the scientific evaluation. So the scientific experts answer, basically, when it comes to AI, the question of technical robustness, and then the report comes to us along with the proposal, and then the ethics experts look at the rest of the other 6, let's say, ethics requirements: human agency and oversight, privacy and data protection, transparency, fairness, environmental well-being, and accountability. As you may understand, these principles are what we call high-level principles. And since we're working on the practical side of things, since we're trying to somehow make sure that these principles are applied and implemented in a uniform, in a consistent way, so as to guarantee that all researchers that receive our grants, are expected to fulfill the same type of requirements, we have issued a series of guidelines, guidance notes, we call them, on different aspects of AI. The first of which is the famous guidance on ethics by design for AI. So basically, we were funding 3 different projects. We also manage our projects on the ethics of AI beyond reviewing the projects themselves. So we funded 3 kind of what we call flagship projects in the field of AI, on the ethics of AI. These projects came together and produced a series of guidelines, or basically developed an approach to the ethics of AI, the so-called ethics by design approach. And this ethics by design was kind of translated into a guidance document that was produced by an expert group. And this document, again, is public, is putting forward this ethics by design by somehow breaking it down, by trying to translate it into practical action. So the document, if you go through it, is there to facilitate, to guide the applicant in how to achieve the so-called ethics by design. And as you may understand, this ethics by design approach is an approach that is somehow copied or modeled on the base of the privacy by design approach that was introduced by the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation. I'm not going to spend time on the ethics by design guidance note. I'll go directly to a different guidance document or guidance note that we have developed, which is on the serious and complex ethics issues. So there is a special category of issues that we call serious and complex. And within that document, which is a long document, there is a specific chapter on AI. And there we try to provide certain somehow clear instructions as to what the applicants do in order to handle challenges, ethical challenges that come together with the design of AI protocols. Right now, what we are basically doing is we continue our work. Basically, our work, as I said, is to make sure that this kind of ethical principles that are being adopted throughout the world, most specifically the guidelines and the requirements that have been adopted at the EU level and have been endorsed by the Commission, are applied consistently and in a uniform way. For that reason, we're now trying to develop, we're in the process of finalizing them actually, 4 different guidance notes, 4 different sets of guidelines, one on the so-called algorithmic bias and fairness, another one on AI and informed consent, another one on a methodology on AI ethics audits, and the 4th one on the AI ethics and project life cycle. The first one, the note on bias, is there to let's say provide the definition of bias for the research community, to propose a methodology for identifying different forms of bias. It includes a taxonomy of bias, criteria and methodology for identifying, addressing, mitigating, and evaluating AI bias, guiding the researchers on how to address AI bias by providing practical examples, and also includes a special guidance to the training of data use and the potential human biases. The second note, which we need because we need as a service beyond the needs of the research community, we need it because we perform ethics audits, and that is something that we have been doing for years, and not only on in the domain of AI. What we do is basically after the first year of the implementation of a project, usually these projects somehow last for 3 or 4 years. We go back to the researchers or to the research team and ask them for what they have done for deliverables and some proof of how they have met the ethics requirements that were introduced at the beginning of the research process. So we set up again an expert panel, and these people are trying to, are reviewing these documents, these deliverables, possibly an ethics report compiled by an independent ethics advisor, if that was a requirement at the beginning, or an ethics, what we call an ethics board. And on the and they come up again with an ethics audit report that the researcher or the research consortium has to kind of implement in order to meet our expectations for an ethically sound AI research. So basically, this guidance note that is under preparation is providing us with a methodology as to how we can somehow design such an ethics audit in a let's say detailed way. So that is more seen as a playbook for a coherent and integrated approach to AI. And of course, this is also going to help the researcher understand what is expected from his side when the commission is performing this type of evaluation control. As I said, we also are in the process of finalizing a report, a guidance note, a set of guidelines on the so-called informed consent. This is a term that is usually used in the field of let's say biomedical science. Throughout the last few years, we see this being applied also in the field of social science and humanities.
Michalis, I'm sorry to interrupt, just giving you a heads up that we have just another 2 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll kind of try to zoom out now for the last 2 minutes by saying that, of course, this is, and I think that was mentioned before, this is only a small part of what is going on at the EU level nowadays, and for the last, I think, 4 to 5 years. And by that, I mean that the Commission has been, taking different initiatives by issuing communications, white papers, the proposal for an AI Act, the coordinated plan on AI along the member states, and of course, our work on the ethics guidelines and requirements. And last but not least, I want to mention, apologies for that, and I saw that you had a special session on AI Act, so I'm not going to bother you with that. What I want to say is that our work also is only a small part. I think Konstantinos' kind of presentation kind of illustrated that is only a small part of the global, let's say, ongoing work on the ethics by AI, of AI. UNESCO has recently produced the first ever global standard on AI ethics, the recommendation on the ethics of AI. OECD was the first organization that set up AI principles. The work of the Council of Europe is very important, especially for Europe. So I'll close here by saying that right now what we need is a certain level of consistency. There are many initiatives in that field. EU is deploying its own initiatives. What we miss is a glue, an institutional glue that will bring all these stakeholders together in order either at the UN level or at another level to have a kind of much more coherent and much more, let's say, coordinated approach towards the ethics of AI. And if we want to achieve a trustworthy AI, I think we have to kind of be inclusive and be proactive about that. Initiatives like the one that of the US-EU Technology Council, of course, are welcome, but they need to be strengthened. They need to also take into account the needs of the global south, and they need to take into account the fact that EU can lead by promoting the trustworthy AI example, but we need other, let's say, allies in that front. Thank you.
Thank you, Michalis. And
The microphone went up. Thank you, Michalis. So I'm intercepting the conversation for 60 seconds only because the teacher instinct in me, and considering the number of students in the room, I'm curious about one thing. I want that you understand the full scope of the conversation we're having today. How many of you consider yourself experts in AI governance? Can you please raise your hand if you think that you understand what the debate globally is going on with AI governance? So let me explain you in a way that it's really easy to understand how privileged is this conversation for you to be able to speak with Konstantinos, here with Mimo and with the other participants. Let me ask you one question. Do you know why we have 24 hours in a day? Do you know why you have 24 hours in a day? The 24 hours is regulating your life, right? You do everything according to these 24 hours. Why is 24 hours? Why is not 10? Why is not 50? Do you know why? So, what is it? Do you know? Huh? Okay, so the reality is that you don't know, right? You're guessing. Nobody actually really know why it's 24. What is it? No, guessing again. Knowledge and guessing are two different things. So the 24 is a standard. It's been heavily fought, right? So what happens is that you have certain standards that once they become adopted, they are very difficult to displace, and it's a power game. Of course, the 24 hours was created by the Americans, right? Now we're in the midst of the most important fight for standards for artificial intelligence. It's going to affect the rest of your life, right? And the two key organizations in the States and in Europe, we have the president of the European one and the managing director of the Italian one, and the managing director of one of the most important standards organization in the US. So, and we have experts that are working with governments in this fight. Now, you know that there's a geopolitical fight for the regulation of AI, right? You know that there's a very contentious subject. So it might have been a little bit complex for you to follow, but basically what we're really trying to address is the next 24 hours as a standard that will lead AI to regulate your life for the next 50, 70 years. So this is just to give you a little bit of context, because I have the feeling that the students in the room might kind of miss the bigger picture. So sorry to interrupt. But,
no, I think it was very useful. And also, since it was the US who decided on the 24 hours, I'm going to ask Anna Gressel, who's going to talk to us about the US perception and also the US approach to this issue, because we just listened to what is more or less the European approach, what are the principles, the ethics behind it. So can you tell us from the legal perspective, which is your focus area, how are the US thinking about this issue, especially related to generative AI, and how much is it similar or different from Europe? How much space for collaboration do you see?
Thank you so much, and thanks for having me here today with such an esteemed panel. I think I'm going to take this from the US perspective, but also from the private sector perspective, because I think that's an important voice in all of this. What do private sector companies, the companies that make your phones, that run your credit cards, that power telecoms, that think about the next drugs that are going to be discovered, what do they care about standards? Why is this important to them? And why is this particularly important to them when it comes to AI? So I'll just say, I mean, I think, we talked about this for those who were here on Monday a little bit, but generative AI, I think, is particularly important when we're having this conversation around how technology should be governed for a few different reasons. First, generative AI, and now, for everyone in the room, we're talking about tools like ChatGPT, but not limited to ChatGPT. We're talking about tools that can create content, that can derive insights from vast amounts of data, that can potentially discover new drugs. There are very important questions happening right now about how those tools should be governed. And why is that? Why is that different from traditional AI? I think just to give everyone a flavor of why these questions are looming so large for companies right now. The first is they can do things that traditional AI couldn't do. They're used in so many different ways. They can generate content. As I mentioned, they can discover drugs. They can translate languages. They can create video and perceive depth from words and from images and from technical pieces of your phone that can grab information about how your phone is moving. All of that information can be brought together and create new applications that are fundamentally different from what we've seen before. These are also tools that are being adopted and used by people, not just by companies, but by individuals, which makes governance more difficult because they're essentially democratized into the hands of individuals. And, you know, people, my mom can use ChatGPT. I don't think she can use any other AI tool. So, this is really a transformative moment. But it's also the case that this is creating a more complex environment from a private sector perspective. And what do I mean by that? I mean that there are large technology companies that are often developing the base or foundation models that are then being used and tuned and customized by other corporations. And again, these are corporations that create many of the products that are in your life, that deliver advertising to you, that create all kinds of information or media that you might be consuming. All of these companies right now are trying to figure out how they can use generative AI, but they're also trying to figure out, many of them, how to do that responsibly and in compliance with the law. And in compliance with the law, that's where I come in as a lawyer. And as a lawyer, we often ask the question, how do these technologies not only need to be used responsibly, but actually in a way that is lawful, compliant, and responsible? And that can take on many different meanings. In the US, what we're seeing is the development of a very fragmented but dynamic regulatory and legal landscape around AI. And that includes the federal level, including proposals that are specific to generative AI. I mean, we're seeing potentially discussion from the US White House about an executive order that might encompass generative AI technologies. We have proposals being put out to make sure that actors or other creators can maintain rights to the likeness in their face or voice. We have proposals that are focused on issues like systemic risk to our financial system, the possibility that our financial markets might actually react to and have problems or crashes based on the use of AI technology by too many financial services firms. All of these issues are a big deal for regulators, and I would say lawmakers as well. And even if we're not at a point where they're yet passed, these are under heavy discussion. And we also see regulators coming in to deal with generative AI issues around bias and discrimination. Most of the federal regulators that have some regulatory authority in areas like housing, employment, credit, education, they are all concerned about the use of AI, and they're very vocal about the application of the laws that are within their regulatory frame to these technologies, and they're bringing actions against companies to enforce. The FTC is also very concerned about issues around transparency and surveillance. What do companies know about you based on the way you move through the world, the way biometrics might capture your image or likeness, or the way in which these technologies may or may not be explained to you clearly. These are issues that are at the forefront of the way the FTC is thinking about these issues. We also have state legislatures and cities even creating new laws dealing with AI. We have biometric laws. We have laws focused on AI and discrimination in hiring. So if your resume, for example, is rejected because of an algorithm that determined that maybe you're not worthy for a job based on your name or the kinds of words used on your resume, that might be indicative of bias and violate what is really an interesting new law in New York City. So we have this very, very dynamic regulatory backdrop, but where do standards come into that, and why does that matter? I would say from working with our clients and from talking to many, many, many companies, even beyond those in the private sector, standards are an incredibly important part of the work they do because they bring together different people within an organization and create a common vocabulary for really putting into action the principles that those organizations have decided to align on. So most organizations have corporate principles, either AI-specific principles or general corporate principles, and their boards of directors, their senior management are very focused on making sure the actions of the corporation align with the principles. But in practice, what does that come down to? It often comes down to very technical, specific decisions about how AI models should be implemented, how they should be tested, and if there are problems, how that testing should be remediated in practice. Lawyers are discussing these, compliance professionals, risk professionals, product managers, for example, they're all in the same room having discussions about what to do, how to know if something's going wrong, and then how to fix it. And standards provide that common language for companies to do that work. And it's very, very important that companies have access to the standards, particularly, I would say, companies that are less technically sophisticated and have less of a capacity to create or really drive the standards internally. I mean, now we're moving away from talking about big technology companies to smaller companies. What should they do, for example, if they are not, if they don't have all of the most sophisticated data scientists? How do they know which decisions to make? Those are really decisions that the standards community can come into and fill those gaps and create a common vocabulary and a common set of tools for those companies to then action to really work responsibly to implement their AI. I'd also say, I mean, I think someone said this earlier, or maybe on the other panel, standards can be political. And I do think we have an important conversation around which standards should be used and how companies can be part of that discussion. Certainly with AI fairness and bias, I think this is a good example of this. There are very different views of what a fair version of the world looks like, and to be able to create standards that discuss that and discuss what fair might be in one context versus another, there's an important role for that to play then, and then having discussions with regulators who may want to say, we found something wrong with an algorithm and now we all have to decide how to fix it. Deciding how to fix it often requires taking on a view of the world that is more fair than another view. And I think making sure that that conversation is inclusive, that people have an opportunity to participate in it globally, and that we can come up with really useful standards for aligning on norms. That's a very, I think, positive role that standards can fill within this legal and regulatory backdrop. There's, I think, much more to say on this, but I'll bring the microphone back to the group and we can always continue this conversation later. Thank you all.
Thank you, Anna. And now I would like to give the word to Domenico Squillace. Thank you for joining us. I wanted to hear your perspective from the authority that you work for, Uninfo, and what do you agree with what's been said so far, especially by Konstantinos in the beginning, and how is your organization going on about?
Just first.
Yes, the slides. No.
Just one remark. My name is Mimo.
Mimo, okay.
Every time I say this is not the right one presentation. This is the long one presentation. No problem at all. This is not the presentation I sent for today. It is very, very long, okay? And it is in Italian, but it is not really a problem. First of all, I wish to thank Francesco for inviting me, first of all. Attento che qui è rotto. It is not a standard chair, okay? This is an overall presentation on what is a standard, where it borns, how it borns, okay? Just another remark. Keep in mind this 4 number, 8601. If you put it in your research center, you will find that it is the ISO standard on how to deal with date and time. Just to asking question for for Francesco before. What is a standard? Okay, we are talking about standard, but what is it? It is just a document. Okay, sorry for Italian, but this is the ancient, okay, terminology for standard. It derives from a standard, which means standardo, which is in Italian is the sign that you have to follow in a battle, okay? And then while standard is usually we say standard when we have to follow something which is related to something. When it becomes with the, okay, when it becomes with the capital S, when it is been developed in a national standard organization, or better, in a standard setting organization. This is the principle of the base. This is the regulation for EU where the standard is defined. Well, why we need some standard? It borns after what we call in Italian is a requirement, okay? Then there is a public time when the standard is okay, no problem at all. Okay, what is a standard? So a standard is a document, okay? A document when which is defined using a standard setting organization. You heard before from Konstantinos, right? That there is a standard organization. It is named IEEE. The standard that we are preparing, we are made, are not this one, are not related to IEEE, are the standard provided and recognized by the World Trade Organization at international level, or the European Commission at European level, or by government, okay? Why UNINFO is here today? I am not the president at European level, clearly, unfortunately. Okay. Thanks, Francesco. I am only the president of the Italian national body for IT matters, okay? Oh, okay, perfect. This is the right one, thanks. So that we can speak in English and not in Italian. If you need my verso qua? No, è là il coso. Vabbè, ho qua. So why UNINFO? What is a standard? I already said what is a standard, right? The standard setting organization are divided in three, as I said before. If we talk about standard on telecommunication, we have standard for, the standard are made by ITU and ETSI. To be honest, this both ITU and ETSI are not limited to telecommunication, and ETSI is not limited to Europe. Why I'm saying this? How many of us has something like that? Almost all of us, right? It is based on an ETSI standard, okay? And this is one of the best expression of a standard. I switch off my phone better. I put it in airplane mode when I am on the flight. When I arrive, wherever I arrive, it is enough that I switch it on and it works again. So this is a interoperability standard, okay? If we talk about electrotechnical point of view, there is IC and Senelec. All others think are related to ISO and SEN at European level. IT instead is related to JTC1. It is a mixed committee between ETSI and ISO. So some of you maybe is asking yourself, why MIMO has left this kind of space? Why does not put it centered, right? Who is thinking about that? Nobody? No. Okay. Because here is another part. There is the IT part. For IT, standardization is made in fora and consortia. Yes, there is an error. No, this is the right one. Made by fora and consortia. Without W3C, we do not have a thing named World Wide Web. We do not have HTTP or HTTP secure S. Without IEEE, among other things they do, we do not have Wi-Fi. How many of us use Wi-Fi? All of us, right? Without IETF, which is a strange acronym, but they produced a thing that say www.mimosquillace.it. It does not exist clearly. IETF made the standard, or better, the request for comment, because this is the name for them, to convert this human text into machine readable. It is converted to the address of my server in my house. So, Italian standard body are two, are CEI and UNI. UNI instead is not really only one, but it has 7 standard body, one of which is UNINFO. So this is why UNINFO is here today, okay? And okay, I serve also as UNINFO president, but I work for an American company, which is named IBM. Maybe you know them, which is the oldest company in IT. And I work for them, and my only job is to work on standardization. In UNINFO, you see a lot of piece of work, a lot of technical committee we are following. I just want to remark only one. This is this one, MPEG. MPEG is the way we compress audio and video. Without MPEG during the pandemic, human will be alone, and AI clearly. I see that it is a long. We are a little bit longer, so I will cut my presentation just in order to maintain only under 3 or 4 minutes, no more. Okay. Here I am. I wear another hat. Okay. Now I am no more UNINFO president. I am the chair of the Committee of Artificial Intelligence for Italy. Okay. This committee is the Italian mirror for the 2 committees at international level and also at European level. The 2 committees are more or less the same scope. They are to prepare standard in artificial intelligence. Clearly, the ISO IC has 37 permanent members, 23 observers. All of us were just last week in Vienna, where we are more or less 250 people representing all of these countries. We have some, okay, I don't want to come in which are the structure of the committee. Just take in mind that we are, first of all, prepared some standard on what we call foundational standard. The first thing and the first area we norm are the vocabulary. So that, as I don't remember her name.
Anna.
Her name, as just said Han, it is the first thing we have to norm, because otherwise we don't know what we are talking about. Data, because AI is based on data. Trustworthiness and ethics. use case, and computational approach. This is a lot of other things that we are doing. Just the message I want to pass you in the meantime that they are rolling, okay? Who is write this standard? I see in this room just one person, my colleague in the Alpha. Or better, all of us. And I see that all of you are young. So we need you to write standards, because standards are only documents, okay? Based on the experience of each of us, okay? We can say a lot of things about standards. We can say that we have, for example, from 2017, we have produced and published 20 standards. Worth to mention with the first concept and technology, but also we have guidance on risk management, bias. Do you know what is bias in the AI? If you ask to an AI which is not well educated, you ask a lawyer, you probably will have the picture of a man, probably a young white man, okay? If it is not educated correctly. So this is one of the standards we made. We made also a standard on trustworthiness. We made some standard on big data reference architecture. We made the standard on quality models. Without quality data, the AI is a mess. We are producing some other standards which are under development. I wish to point just only two family of standards. The first one is related to data quality for machine learning. If you put not quality data in the machine learning mechanism, then at the end you have wrong data, okay? The other, for controllability, which is my friend before is talking about technologies and on transparency. And there is also management system. All of these standards are being duplicated also at European level in this one. I don't want to waste your time. Just one thing. This is the reason why I put this here. Take in mind that with what we are doing with AI, we need a new family of professionals, which are the ethicists. So we are started, and when I say we, I say in this case, Italy is starting, because it is Italy which is heading this part, a standard where we wish to establish a framework to define the core competencies essential for professional AI ethics. The other part is related to the AI Act, but I see that, which is your name, I don't remember.
Gianluca.
Gianluca has already talked about that, so we can skip this one. And we can conclude so that also Giacomo is happy for the other one.
Thank you, Mimmo. And just one thing, I want to leave space for Clelia Piperno. She's the CEO of the Talmud Babylonian Translation Project, to maybe ask a final question or comment regarding everything that you have heard here today.
It's very hard because you are tired and I am stressed. And stressed for a few things. First of all, that the bias is one of the theme, while on the contrary, of course, I think it's a theme. And maybe it's the theme. Because no one of you mention nothing about the digital divide. And the digital divide will be the question, will be the reason that will brought people to cross the desert again. I don't know which one of you have saw a wonderful movie, and I will encourage you to see it, which is Io Capitano. It's a very Italian and popular movie that is telling us the story of what artificial intelligence through an iPhone or anyhow a smartphone has done. Has done a dream, has done an answer to some needs. Well, today I don't have any answer more than what can we do in relation with digital divide. But what I tell you, it's never, never forget to put yourself an answer. Because the most important thing that today we understand that there are a lot of questions to all the answer about AI, through which I work every day in every minute of my life. And that we discover it's not able to tell me if an article been misunderstanding from another one, because the 80% of us, it's able to add some words and modify some text. So at this moment, I am not so frightened about AI. I am frightened about the problem of education. I'm frightened about the problem of the capability of any one of us to make the right answer, because knowledge makes you to be able to make the right answer. And I saw many authorities, but no one of them is taking care about education, while here today we are, most of us, making this bad work, trying to educate one of you. It's enough. If I change the soul of one of you, being more optimistic, being more believing in himself, this is my answer. But it's my question to your answer of knowledge, answer of future. Who will care about the young people that are not represented enough in this world? I saw so many old people and no one is taking care of the representative of youth. No one. And they are answering themselves, why? Through the AI, we are not able to involve more people in policy. Well, this is the answer, education, failing of education. So what can I tell you? Make your question by yourself.